Welcome to the Flora Sage Podcast, a place where we help you create a life you're excited about. In this week's podcast episode, I'm sharing with you more details about my 14-day spiritual retreat and digital cleanse, why I'm choosing to do it, what led me to this space, who I'm doing it with, and just some other insights. So I hope you enjoy this podcast episode. Okay, so a few months ago, I started working with a spiritual teacher and guru. And I got to tell you, my mind has been blown. I've always considered myself a spiritual seeker and have been pretty much exploring and testing the boundaries and the edges of my spirituality since I can remember. I grew up in a Catholic school, in a Catholic home, and I gotta tell you, I got in trouble all the time for asking questions that my priest and that the nuns at school did not like. I went from being Catholic to being born again Christian. I was born again Christian for a long time. I started to really challenge the inconsistencies that I was seeing in scripture and in the people of the church. I really just allowed myself to pull back and say, okay, why am I doing this? And for me, I always felt like there was something missing, and that's why I had such a deep longing and a deep curiosity about religion, especially religious places that were housed in a specific location, that abided by a specific doctrine and all that jazz. So in my search, I allowed myself to question everything and pretend I knew nothing. And so I went into like the born again Christian faith, pretending I didn't know anything about the Bible, anything about Jesus. And I asked and asked and asked. I did that with, Catholicism. I did that with Buddhism. I did that with Judaism. I really picked apart all these different practices. And one of the things that I realized is that I felt closer to God when I was outside in nature. And another thing that I realized was that there's a through line in literally all of these religions, which is love. Another thing that I also noticed in these religions and in these spiritual practices was presence. Being fully present in the moment. And various religions and various faiths bring in presence in the form of like meditations or prayers. Like the Catholics have the rosary. There's other religious practices that have like mala beads or prayer beads, where you take that particular tool and you allow your mind to become focused and centered on a mantra or the practice involved in a prayer associated with a specific bead on the chain of prayer beads. Again, for the Catholics, it's the rosary and whatnot. In looking at that and exploring that, I was like, oh my gosh, yes, I love this. And like I said, I loved the essence of love and presence and really deeply connecting with that higher power. And again, I know that I have a broad range of listeners who call their higher power something different. So I'm just going to say higher power or God or universe or source energy. And in all my years of dabbling, if you will, in different religions and in different spiritual practices, again, this is the one thing that I just kept coming back to and coming back to and coming back to. So I've always liked to call myself earth-based in my spiritual practice. I connected with my spiritual teacher last year, and we hit it off right away. And I started to ask the questions that I think everyone thinks about and everyone kind of wants to know the answers to. And every time I asked a question, she posed the answer or answers in just the right way to where it would push the boundaries and the edges of my spiritual practice a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. Some of her answers confirmed what I already knew or already suspected, but then some of the answers allowed me to stretch my mind and stretch how I perceived certain things. And I was like mind blown so many times in working with her. So in any case, we started talking, and I don't actually remember how this 14-day spiritual retreat came up, but I'm like, yes, sign me up. And when I looked at my calendar, the first 2-week frame of time in my calendar that was available was the end of March. I'm like, that's not okay with me. I need to do this like right now. And so I actually bumped down all of my commitments for the first week of February. I just bumped them down 1 week. One of the biggest reasons why I said yes so quickly is because the world that we live in right now is so hypercharged on the right and the left. And those of us who kind of sit in the middle, I have some views that lean right, some views that lean left, some views that I'm just like, you do you, it's all good, you know? And it's so hyper sensationalized, like literally everything. Social media, the news. I don't watch the news, but I do have a couple apps that I do get my news from. And even conversations out in town are, again, hyper sensationalized, and it's one extreme to the other extreme. And I just have felt myself get a little bit more ungrounded, a little bit more of that craving and feeling of I need to literally unplug from everything. And being a content creator, being a coach, being a writer, it's something that, yes, I take my vacations every year. I take the one at the end of the year for 3 weeks, sometimes 4 weeks. I always take the one in June and July for usually 3 to 4 weeks. And so, but typically for that, my VIP clients still have access with me. I still check my bank account. I still, will pop in to check my personal email, maybe order something from Amazon. And so even though I was on vacation, I still wasn't entirely unplugged. And, last year I went to Hawaii for 10 days. And even though I spent very little time on my device, I still spent time on my device. I was taking pictures and taking video and uploading a couple things to my, TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and things like that. And then I think twice I went in and I checked email and I checked my bank balance one day. And, again, I was on vacation in paradise with my family, but I wasn't fully unplugged. And this retreat that I'm going to be doing is not just unplugging from devices. It's not just not using my computer for 2 weeks. It is truly unplugging from the ego. And that's truly what I needed, truly what I am in need of. And so what I am going to be expected to do is do a 14-day digital cleanse and practice to gain ultimate clarity and to completely disconnect from ego. This practice and this retreat that I'm going to do, as explained by my guru and mentor, is that this is a daily spiritual practice rooted in discipline and surrendering. And she says, it results in ultimate realization and unattachment from worldly materials. And she's giving us all the tools, like those of us who are choosing to participate in this particular retreat. She's giving us all the tools and everything needed to do this retreat at my house. So it's very cool. But there's very little outside stuff that we actually need when we do this particular digital cleanse and retreat. So I'm going to share with you what not the whole thing, but I'm going to share with you some of the things that I'm going to be doing. So I have a set wake up time and bedtime or rest time. I have set meal times. I do have set meditation times, yoga times, journaling times. There's a breath practice time. And if guided, then self-reflection and journaling times. And then there's like outside time and free time and stuff like that. And she has a lot of do's and don'ts for those who have never done something like this before. And one of the things that is to be expected during this particular retreat is to do a vow of silence for 1 to 3 days. And I'm choosing to do 3 days right at the beginning. No talking, no communication whatsoever. And I've actually had a couple of my clients who I've shared this with. They're like, so can you like write on a tablet and stuff like that? And I'm just like, nope, nothing. And so I researched this because I've never done a vow of silence before. I have eaten meals in silence. I went to this place called Kripalu, which is in the Berkshire Mountains. Gorgeous, gorgeous place. I went and trained with Gabby Bernstein many, many years ago. And they have a silent breakfast every morning. And they also have a silent dining room. So I have had experience with like eating in silence and just mindful periods of silence, should I say. So in any case, I begin researching, vow of silence, what can I expect, yada, yada. And there was this one blogger in particular who is a networker. And she went to networking events while she was taking her vow of silence. And she does this whole vow of silence thing every single year. And she said every time it's so eye-opening and so humbling. And one of the tools that she uses is a note card. And her note card, I believe, says, I've taken a vow of silence. I'm learning to become a better listener. And I'm like, oh, I love that idea. During my 14-day period, every single day, there is a quote-unquote free time, and there's also outside time. Well, I walk my dog every single day. And because I walk my dog every single day, I see kind of the same people around the neighborhood. And a lot of the people in my neighborhood like to stop me and talk, and we'll have conversations. Sometimes these conversations last a long time. When I do see these people before I go into my space of no talking, I am going to tell them, hey, I'm going to be doing a spiritual retreat and I'm going to take a vow of silence. But I can guarantee you those people are probably going to still talk to me. So I'm going to carry that note card with me, and I'm going to say on the note, my personal note card is going to say, I've taken a 3-day vow of silence. Today is day blank of 3. And so I'll change it to day 1, day 2, or day 3. And just to let them know that I'm not talking. And one of the funny things that I read in the blogger who was sharing her experience, and I'll actually find the blog and I'll post it in the show notes. But one of the things that she said was the worst part is that when she holds up that card and, you're doing a vow of silence. They're like, oh, how's it going? And she's like, oh, I can't say anything because I had a vow of silence. So I thought that was kind of funny. But in any case, so when we take a vow of silence, one of the things that I researched is that your ego mind just kind of goes nuts like the first couple days. You're like, because you just want to talk and talk and talk, or even just make random comments or jokes or share some insight with someone. And because you can't do any of that communication, you maybe feel a little bit frustrated and a little bit overwhelmed because you can't share your particular beliefs with the people that are in your life. So it's recommended that you don't just isolate, that if you do have periods where you can go and be outside, don't be afraid to bump into someone and just say, not say, but have like a sticker on your shirt or a card that basically says, I've taken a vow of silence. So that was one of the things that I was genuinely concerned about, that I asked my teacher, and I'm just like, what if somebody wants to talk with me? And she's like, Don't avoid them. It's all good. And I was like, all right, cool. So in any case, this is a really big step for me spiritually. I've done a lot of retreats in the past. I've done a lot of self-work. I've done a lot of meditation. I've learned TM, and this was probably, I think, almost 7 years ago. Actually, it'll be 7 years in April when I learned transcendental meditation. And at the time that I was searching and seeking, I was feeling so restless. I was feeling like no matter what I did, I just couldn't go deep enough in my consciousness or in my subconscious mind. I couldn't disconnect fully. When I discovered TM, I discovered that I could drop out of consciousness and literally be in a space of nothingness for 20 minutes. And it's pure bliss. But I've been feeling that shift again. I've been feeling that dissonance. I've been feeling that craving and that longing for something deeper. And again, that is one of the biggest reasons why I'm doing this is I really truly want to completely and fully integrate my God self with my, as my teacher calls it, the man's grid self, or like our ego body and our physical existence. So I really want to try to integrate the God self into my earthly existence. And it was an easy decision to make, yet, as I've mentioned, my ego is kind of freaking out just a little bit. Now, my partner is going to have the ability to be able to contact my kids, or my kids can contact him if something is going on. But literally, I will be having no cell phone, no computer, no access to anything. So that is the gist of my 2-week digital cleanse and spiritual retreat that I'm going to be doing with 3 days of a vow of silence. And part of me, the go big or go home part of me, which I really truly don't ascribe to, but because I'm really ready to get rid of ego, part of me is like, dude, let's go like 4 days without talking. So we'll see how that happens. I don't know if I'm going to be able to go 4 days, but for sure 3 days. I'm so excited. Now, for those of you who are interested in doing something like this for yourself, I will post a link to my guru's webpage, to her social media again, and I'll also post the link to the blogger that does the Vow of Silence every single year as a spiritual practice for herself. And life is about getting curious. It's about being present. It's about just having a good time and being excited and just being you completely. But sometimes we get so caught up in ego, like we should do this and we should do that and we should like this and we should like that and blah, 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 blah. And sometimes you just have to be like, stop, enough. I don't want to keep up with the Joneses. I want to do my own damn thing. Well, sometimes we don't know who the hell we are. And this is something that can help you find who the hell you are. It can help you disconnect and from the outside world and reconnect with yourself. And like I said, that is the main reason why I'm doing this, is because I really truly want to deeply connect with that part of me, the essence part of me, that God self part of me that is part of all of us. It truly is part of all of us. But the more we connect with social media, the more we connect with TV and our devices, the more disconnected we become. And there's actual scientific evidence that this happens. The more people are on their devices, the more anxious and anxiety that they have, the more cortisol, aka stress hormone, that they have. It's just kind of a hot mess. And so allowing yourself to completely unplug is a way that you can do a reset. So if you're interested, like I said, I do not get any kickback. I'm not an affiliate. I'm just sharing my guru's information to you, for you. If you are guided, click the link, check it out, and let her know that Flora sent you. Like I said, she is absolutely incredible, absolutely amazing. You will not be disappointed, let me tell you. So if you have any questions whatsoever for me, go ahead and send an email to support@florasage.com about this particular thing, this retreat that I'm doing. When I come back from my retreat, like I said, it's ending on February 4th. So February 5th, I'm coming out into the real world. I will activate my phone again. Not activate it. I will power up my phone again. And that next week, or maybe the week after, I'll take your guys' questions. So if you have a question for me that you can think of between now and then that you want me to answer on this podcast about my experience, let me know, and I will answer any and all questions that I get. I'm so freaking excited. So I hope this serves you. This is kind of a little bit of a different podcast format because I'm just kind of sharing you what I'm going to be going through. But yes, please let me know if you have any questions whatsoever, and I will answer those questions about my experience in going through this 14-day digital cleanse when I get out of the digital cleanse. Now, with that said, I will be pre-recording podcasts and releasing them while I am doing this retreat. So you will still see content from myself, and I hope that you enjoy it. And with that said, I love you guys. Thank you so much for popping in and listening to today's podcast. I hope it serves you. And again, click the link in the show notes if you are interested in digging in and learning more. I love you guys. I'll see you soon. Mwah. Bye. If you're enjoying this content, which I hope you are, and you're applying this knowledge in your life and are seeing results, I would love to hear about your successes. Click the link in today's show notes, share your success story with me so you can help to inspire others. Also, if you've been loving these episodes, it would mean the world to me if you would rate this podcast on iTunes. A 5-star rating is what I always aim for. Thank you for listening to today's podcast episode. All links mentioned are in today's show notes.